Hello and welcome to Starbound's second channel. My name is Gabriel the Bibi Capaldi and I'll be your narrator today. But before we get into today's story, please do check down below that you are subscribed to the channel. It's 100% free and helps us pop up on your feed a bit more often. Gritzo wasn't ready for what he was about to discover in human DNA. Standing alone in his darkened laboratory, he held the vial of crimson liquid up to the soft blue glow of his analysis screen, watching how the light played through the viscous substance. Human blood? Such a simple thing, really. Just another sample in his vast collection. Just another species to categorize, analyze, and ultimately understand its weaknesses. Or so he thought. The laboratory sprawled around him in shadowy majesty, a cathedral of science built to his exacting specifications. Tall shelves lined the walls, filled with thousands upon thousands of glass containers, each precisely labeled and stored at the optimal temperature for preservation. Blood from countless species filled these vials, most of them acquired through methods that would never withstand official scrutiny. But such concerns were trivial for Gritzo, lead scientists of the Arquarian Consortium, and possibly the most brilliant mind his species had produced in generations. The dim lighting wasn't a malfunction, but a preference. Gritzo's eyes, covered by his analyzing glasses, an innovation of his own design, worked better in low light. The glasses themselves were perhaps his greatest personal achievement, a tool that could shift between countless visual spectrums, apply real-time filters, and process information faster than even the most advanced Aquarian computers. They rested comfortably on his blue-skinned face, the frames designed to match the contours of his lean humanoid skull. At 5 feet tall, Gritzo was of average height for an Aquarian. His sleek form moved with the slowness of someone who considered physical motion merely another process to optimize. His skin gleamed with a soft blue hue in the darkness, and whenever he blinked, his green eyelids flashed like emerald shutters. The two arms that extended from his slender torso were currently engaged in adjusting the settings on his analysis equipment, his long fingers interacting with the controls very quickly. The glasses glowed as he visually analyzed the human blood, shifting through spectral filters with every blink. Immediately, he noted an unusually high concentration of leukocytes, white blood cells. Fascinating. The immune response capabilities were remarkably robust for a species so recently emerged from their planetary cradle. Interesting, he murmured to himself. This meticulous cataloguing of weaknesses and strengths was his life's work. Every species had vulnerabilities, biological, psychological, environmental. Knowing these vulnerabilities was power, and power was something the Aquarians understood intimately. As their leading xenobiologist, Gritzo's research had provided his people with countless advantages in their dealings with other species. Diplomatic negotiations, trade agreements, and yes, occasionally military actions, all benefited from his findings. With careful movements, he placed the vial of human blood into the gene analyzer, closed the hermetic seal, and initiated the deep scanning sequence. The machine turned on, its internal components beginning the process of breaking down the sample at the molecular level, mapping every genetic sequence, every protein arrangement, every cellular peculiarity. The analysis would take time, approximately 8 minutes according to the progress indicator. Gritzo sighed. Boredom was one of the few enemies he couldn't defeat with intellect. To pass the time, he wandered along the shelves, inspecting his collection of exotic samples. Some were commonplace, Tralaxian lymph fluid, Hevorian nerve tissue, but others were exceedingly rare, acquired at great expense or risk. His attention was drawn to a particular vial situated in a specialized containment field at the center of his trophy wall. The liquid inside appeared red at first glance, not unlike the human blood he'd just placed in the analyzer, but as he drew closer, he noticed the peculiar way light seemed to bend around it, as though the substance itself warped the fabric of reality. This was no ordinary blood sample. This was primal blood. Gritzo felt a flutter of pride every time he looked at it. His species had obtained it only after one of those ancient beings had perished while containing the overheating core of a massive colony ship. The primal had sacrificed itself, using its immense psychic powers to control the fundamental forces of physics, holding the antimatter reaction in check long enough for thousands to escape. In the aftermath, this minute sample had been recovered, and through a series of exchanges and favors that Gritzo preferred not to dwell on, it had ended up in his possession. The primals were living legends, the oldest known species in the galaxy. Their mastery of psychic abilities and their profound understanding of the universe's fundamental laws had elevated them to an almost mythical status among younger races. To possess even this tiny sample of their biological material was a privilege few scientists could claim. A sharp series of beeps pulled Gritzo from his reverie. The analysis was complete, far ahead of schedule. Unusual. He hurried back to the machine, eager to see the results, then froze, his body suddenly immobile as his glasses processed what the main AI had displayed on the screen. Warning messages overlaid the data, their red glyphs drawing his attention. Not one warning, but multiple. This was unexpected. The first warning highlighted the human immune system's robustness. The machine had categorized it as exceptional, noting that it could adapt to foreign pathogens with remarkable speed. Gritzo frowned, then dismissed this finding with a gesture. Unusual, certainly, but not unique among spacefaring species. At most, it meant humans could probably walk freely on most worlds without environmental protection suits, a convenience, not a threat. The second caution message concerned the human endocrine system, particularly the production of adrenaline and related hormones. Under sufficient stress, these chemicals could temporarily enhance both physical strength and mental acuity to surprising degrees. Again, Gritzo's initial shock gave way to dismissal. Many species achieved similar results through technological means or artificial enhancements. The ability to perform well under pressure was hardly revolutionary. The third warning addressed human endurance. According to the data, humans possessed exceptional stamina, able to sustain moderate physical activity for extended periods. Some of the projections suggested they could literally run prey to death given sufficient time and suitable conditions. Gritzo scoffed at this. No amount of endurance could compete with modern weaponry or fighting machines. A curious evolutionary adaptation, but militarily insignificant. Then his eyes fell on the fourth warning, and Gritzo felt his knees weaken beneath him. He gripped the edge of the console to steady himself, his mind refusing to process what the analysis was telling him. This couldn't be right. It was impossible. The machine must be malfunctioning. He read the result again, and then a third time, his analytical mind searching desperately for alternative explanations, for errors in the methodology, for anything that would make sense of the impossible data before him. The analysis claimed that human DNA shared a 7.3% genetic similarity with primal DNA. Gritzo's breath caught in his throat. 7.3%. It wasn't a vast percentage, not enough to suggest direct lineage or cloning, but it was far, far beyond the realm of coincidence. For comparison, most intelligent species in the galaxy shared no more than 1% genetic overlap among themselves, and even that was typically limited to the most basic building blocks of life. "No," he whispered, his voice barely audible even to himself. "Run the analysis again." The machine complied, drawing another sample from the vial. This time, Gritzo did not wander away. He stood motionless before the screen, counting each second as it passed, his eyes never leaving the progress indicator. His mind raced through possibilities, each more unlikely than the last. Contamination? Impossible in his sterile lab. Computer error? The system ran continuous self-diagnostics. Human tampering of their own genetics? Not impossible, but as far as he knew, they lacked the technological sophistication. After what felt like an eternity, the results appeared. The same warning, the same percentage, 7.3%. Gritzo remained utterly speechless, his mind temporarily overwhelmed by the implications. The primals, those ancient beings of immense psychic power, who could manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe with nothing but their thoughts, shared a genetic link with humans? Those bipedal mammals whose greatest evolutionary advantages seemed to be persistence hunting and efficient temperature regulation through perspiration. It was so absurd that it circled back to fascinating. The primals were revered throughout the galaxy. Their psychic abilities allowed them to communicate across vast distances, to perceive realms of existence hidden from ordinary senses, to even, if the stories were true, alter the get-glimpses of the future in limited ways. Their technology, if their abilities could even be called that, functioned on principles that the finest Arcrarian scientists have failed to comprehend despite centuries of study. And these humans, these newcomers to the galactic stage, with their primitive spacecraft and their quaint notions of diplomacy, somehow carried fragments of primal genetic code in their cells? Gradually, as the initial shock subsided, a different emotion began to take hold in Gritzo's mind: determination. This wasn't just an anomaly to be filed away or a curiosity to be noted in some academic journal. This was a discovery that could reshape the understanding of galactic history and evolution. More importantly, it could elevate his status even further among his people. The decision settled in his mind with sudden clarity. He would investigate this connection personally, no matter where it led. He would seek answers from the only beings who might possess them, the primals themselves. Gritzo moved with newfound purpose, securing the human blood sample in a portable containment unit and downloading the analysis results in his personal data storage. He cross-checked the findings once more, then wiped the main computer's memory of this particular analysis. Some discoveries were too valuable to share prematurely. He crossed the laboratory to a hidden door set flush with the wall, passing through it into a sterile decontamination chamber. Pressurized air blasted from all directions, while mechanical tentacles extended from the walls, methodically cleaning every square centimeter of his body and clothing. Only when the system was satisfied with his sterility did the outer door unlock with a soft hiss. In the corridor beyond, two robotic guards stood at attention, their bipedal forms gleaming under the bright lights. Upon seeing Gritzo, they bowed deeply, a gesture of respect reserved for only the highest echelons of Acrarian society. Despite being primarily a scientist, Gritzo wielded more political influence than most planetary governors. His breakthroughs in xenobiology had provided the Acrarian consortium with countless advantages in their dealings with other species. His research into biological vulnerabilities had helped them avoid 3 potential plagues, and his insights had proven decisive in their brief but significant conflict with the Trelexian Imperium. He was not merely respected, he was vital to national security. "No one enters the laboratory," he instructed the guards. "Not my assistants, not the cleaning drones, not even consortium officials. I've initiated a sensitive analysis that cannot be disturbed." The guards acknowledged the order without question. They knew better than to challenge his authority, just like everyone else. "How long should we maintain this restriction, distinguished one?" the main guard asked. "Until I return," Gritzo replied simply, already walking away. He moved through the corridors of the research complex quickly, ignoring the deferential nods of other scientists and administrators he passed. His mind was focused entirely on what lay ahead. A journey to the heart of primal territory, a quest for answers that might change everything. Within minutes, he reached the exterior landing pad where his personal vessel waited. The sleek craft, named Empirical Truth, in a moment of scientific self-indulgence, gleamed silver under the purple light of Edara's sun. Unlike the utilitarian military vessels that dominated Acrarian spaceflight, Gritzo's ship combined functionality with aesthetic elegance. It spoke of his status as much as a means of transportation. The ship's captain, an experienced spacer named Vrelior, stood at the base of the boarding ramp with his crew of 12 arrayed behind him. He straightened as Gritzo approached. "Distinguished one, we received your notification. The ship is prepared for immediate departure." Vrelio reported. Good, Gritzo said. Now, evacuate it. The captain blinked, his professional composure momentarily slipping.
Evacuate, sir?
Yes. I will be traveling alone. The entire crew is to disembark immediately. Murmurs of confusion spread among the crew members. Vrelio stepped closer, lowering his voice.
With all respect, distinguished one, regulations require a minimum crew of 5 for any interstellar journey, even with the automated systems.
I am well aware of regulations, Captain. Gritzo cut him off. This is not a standard mission. I am traveling to meet with the primals. The effect of his words was immediate and dramatic. Several crew members actually took involuntary steps backwards, as though the mere mention of the ancient race carried physical force.
The primals?
Vrelio repeated, his voice not higher than a whisper.
Distinguished one, their territory is restricted. The diplomatic protocols alone would require months of preparation, and without proper clearance.
I possess full diplomatic immunity granted by the Galactic Council, Gritzo informed him, not bothering to mention that this immunity was technically limited to scientific conferences and research expeditions. More importantly, the primals may be offended if individuals without similar status enter their space uninvited. I go alone to minimize potential diplomatic incidents. This wasn't entirely true. The primals rarely concern themselves with such trivialities, but it served Gritzo's purpose. The fewer witnesses to his investigation, the better. Vrelio hesitated, clearly torn between regulatory compliance and the weight of Gritzo's authority. Finally, he nodded.
As you wish, distinguished one, but at least allow us to prepare the ship for single-occupant operation.
A mind like mine can decide my own specifications, Gritzo said dismissively. Now, vacate the vessel. I depart immediately. Without waiting for further discussion, he ascended the boarding ramp. Behind him, he heard Vrelio issuing hurried orders to the crew, organizing their rapid evacuation. The Empirical Truth's internal systems recognized Gritzo's biological signature as he entered, lights and environmental controls automatically adjusting to his preferences. The ship's interior was a good example of agrarian engineering, a comfortable design, but compromising on functionality. Under normal circumstances, Gritzo might have taken a moment to appreciate the luxurious accommodations, the well-appointed scientific laboratory, or the extensive entertainment options available. Today, he bypassed them all, heading directly for the bridge. The command center was compact, with most functions accessible from the central pilot station. Gritzo settled into the ergonomic chair, which adjusted immediately to his physiology. Computer, seal all entrances and prepare for immediate departure, he commanded. Acknowledged, the ship's AI responded in a pleasant, genderless voice. All entrances sealed. Pre-flight checks initiated. Through the viewports, Gritzo could see the last of his crew descending the now retracted boarding ramp, many of them looking back at the vessel with expressions ranging from confusion to concern. Set course for the primal core world, he instructed. Calculate the fastest possible route, and ignore standard navigation protocols where feasible. There was a brief pause, longer than usual for the advanced AI, before it responded. Destination acknowledged. However, I must inform you that the primal core world lies within restricted space. Standard protocols require override protocol restrictions. Authorization Gritzo Alpha 7 9 Delta. Another pause. Override accepted. Calculating fastest route to primal core world. While the computer worked, Gritzo reviewed the genetic analysis once more on his personal device. The 7.3% match remained stubbornly consistent across multiple verification algorithms. If anything, more detailed examination only strengthened the connection, revealing subtle similarities in nucleotide sequencing patterns that were statistically impossible to attribute to chance. Route calculated, the AI announced. Estimated journey time, 72 standard hours. Warning, this route traverses 3 restricted sectors and utilizes experimental hyperspace vectors. Acknowledged. Initiate departure sequence. The ship's engines activated. a deep vibration that Gritzo felt through the deck plates. With smooth motion, the empirical truth lifted from the landing pad, rapidly ascending through Edara's atmosphere. The purple sky outside the viewport darkened to black as they left the stratosphere behind, stars emerging like scattered diamonds against the void. Preparing for hyperspace transition, the AI informed him. Moments later, the stars stretched into lines of brilliant light, then vanished entirely as the ship entered the dimensional corridor of hyperspace. The viewports now showed only the strange, shifting patterns of blue and purple that characterized this realm of faster-than-light travel. With the journey underway, Gritzo finally had time to contemplate the full implications of his discovery. If humans had somehow acquired primal genetic material, the consequences could be enormous. Had the primals experimented on early humans? Had they mixed their own genetic material with that of primitive hominids? Or was it possible, and this thought sent a chill through Gritzo's body, the humans had somehow stolen primal DNA and integrated it into their own genome? If the latter were true, revealing this theft to the primals could earn Gritzo unprecedented gratitude from the ancient race. Such a revelation could elevate his status not just among his own people, but across the entire galactic community. The possibilities were intoxicating. Equally exciting was the prospect of visiting the primal core world itself. Few non-primals had ever set foot on that legendary planet. Gritzo had dreamed of such an opportunity for decades, though he had never imagined it would arise from something as unexpected as human genetic analysis. For 3 days, Gritzo oscillated between meticulous review of the data and grand fantasies about the recognition his discovery might bring. He barely slept, sustained by stimulants and the thrill of impending revelation. When the ship's AI finally announced their approach to primal space, Gritzo was simultaneously exhausted and more alert than he had ever been. Preparing to exit hyperspace, the AI informed. Arrival at primal system perimeter in 3, 2, 1. The swirling patterns of hyperspace abruptly vanished, replaced by normal space. Gritzo's breath caught in his throat as he beheld the view through the forward viewport. The primal star system was unlike any he had ever seen. The central star pulsed with a red radiance. Its corona extended its beautiful patterns. Around it orbited 3 planets, each surrounded by intricate rings that seemed to glow with their own internal light, rather than merely reflecting the star's illumination. The 3rd planet, the primal core world, dominated the viewport. It was a sphere of deep purple and electric blue, with continents shaped in patterns too perfect to be natural. Cloud formation spiraled across its surface, and the oceans appeared to glow from within, as though illuminated by some subsurface energy source. It was breathtaking. It was terrifying. It was exactly as mysterious as Gritzo had imagined. Before he could even instruct the compute to establish communication, he felt it. A presence in his mind, gentle but unmistakable. There was no technological intermediary, no comms channel being opened. One moment he was alone in his thoughts, and the next he wasn't. "State your purpose, traveler." The voice, though voice was an inadequate term for this form of communication, resonated directly in Gritzo's consciousness. It carried with it impressions of ancient wisdom, of quiet power held in perfect control, of patience measured in millennia rather than moments. Somehow, Gritzo knew with absolute certainty that the entity communicating with him was physically located on the planet below, seated cross-legged atop a mountain peak, eyes closed in meditation. This knowledge came not from the deduction, but as part of the communication itself, a shared context that the primal had chosen to include. This was not the typical military operator or civilian air controller he might encounter in other star systems. This was something far older, far more significant. Gritzo swallowed, his throat suddenly dry. I request an audience with the High Elder," he managed to say aloud, knowing somehow that his spoken words would be received. "The matter is confidential and of potential importance to the primal civilization." He felt a gentle pressure in his mind, like fingers leafing through pages of a book. The primal was scanning his thoughts, seeking truth behind his words. Gritzo tried to focus on his diplomatic credentials, on the legitimacy of his mission, attempting to divert attention from the specifics of his discovery. But the pressure increased, becoming more directed, more purposeful. The Primal was searching for something specific now, brushing aside Gritzo's attempted misdirections with the casual ease of a scholar dismissing a child's naive arguments. Then, abruptly, the presence in his mind focused with laser intensity on a single thought: the genetic analysis, the 7.3% match, the human blood sample secured in Gritzo's personal effects. Humans? The word exploded in Gritzo's consciousness like a supernova, carrying with it a complex tangle of emotions too alien, too vast for him to fully comprehend. There was recognition there, and something like surprise, and perhaps, most disturbing of all, a hint of what might have been fear. Then, as suddenly as it had intensified, the mental pressure receded. You may land at the Celestial Harmony spaceport in the City of Luminous Thought. High Elder Loha will receive you. Before Gritzo could respond or request further information, the connection was severed. He sat alone in his thoughts once more, the only sound, the soft noise of the ship's systems. On the navigation display, coordinates appeared unbidden, provided, presumably, by the Primal who had scanned his mind. The ship's AI acknowledged these coordinates without comment and began the approach vector to the planet below. Gritzo stared at the gorgeous, impossible world growing larger in his viewport, a mix of scientific excitement and ancient dread swirling in his chest. Whatever revelations awaited him on the surface, he was certain of one thing: the connection between humans and primals was far more significant than a mere genetic curiosity, and he was about to discover just how significant it truly was. The empirical truth descended through layers of lavender clouds, following the coordinates provided by the unseen primal guide. As the ship broke through the final cloud layer, Gritzo gasped at the vista below. The City of Luminous Thought spread before him, a sprawling metropolis of impossibly tall towers and geometric structures that seemed to defy conventional architecture. The buildings rose in soft angles, stone bent rather than cut or carved. Yet despite the grandeur, something felt profoundly wrong. The city was beautiful, yes, but it was beautiful in the way ancient ruins were beautiful. There was emptiness here, an absence that struck Gritzo as increasingly obvious as the ship descended. The landing coordinates directed him to a vast circular clearing among the towering structures, a space that might once have been alive with activity but now lay eerily still. The ship settled onto the smooth stone surface with barely a sound. Gritzo ran the atmospheric analysis, finding nothing dangerous, no pathogens, no toxins, nothing that would threaten an Aquarian's physiology. The air pressure was slightly higher than his homeworld, but within tolerable parameters. He quickly initiated the equalization sequence, eager to step out onto the legendary planet's surface. As the boarding ramp extended, Gritzo felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. Something about this place radiated age. Not the comforting age of wisdom or tradition, but the cold age of abandonment. He stepped out onto the stone surface, his analytical glasses automatically adjusting to the blue-tinged sunlight. The stillness was oppressive. No vehicles moved between the towering structures. No pedestrians walked the wide avenues. Only occasionally did he spot illuminated floors among the countless windows of the colossal buildings, tiny islands of habitation in an ocean of emptiness. The magnificent architecture, which must have in a distant past housed millions, now seemed to serve primarily as monuments to a faded glory. Dust covered everything. Gritzo bent down, running a finger along the surface of the landing pad. The fine powder that collected on his fingertip appeared to be the accumulated debris of centuries, undisturbed by either cleaning systems or footsteps. "Follow the orbs." The voice in his mind startled him despite its gentleness. As he straightened, a line of small, glowing spheres of blue light materialized in the air before him, hovering at approximately his eye level, stretching away towards one of the massive structures. Curious, Gritzo reached out to touch the nearest orb. It dissipated like morning mist as his fingers approached, only to reform once he withdrew his hand. The message was clear enough. These were guides, not objects to be examined. With a last glance at his ship, Gritzo began to follow the trail of lights. They led him across the empty plaza, the sound of his footsteps echoing unnaturally in the silence. He passed enormous mountains where water no longer flowed, and gardens where nothing had grown for what might have been millennia. The orbs guided him to the base of a particularly massive structure, a tower that stretched so high that its upper reaches were lost in the clouds. Unlike the other buildings, this one was constructed of what appeared to be natural stone, dark and imposing. An arched entrance yawned before him, leading into a corridor of the same stone. The temperature dropped noticeably as he entered, and the slightly warm light of the sun gave way to a soft, sourceless illumination that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. The corridor stretched ahead, flanked by intricate carvings depicting beings and events Gritzo couldn't begin to interpret. At the corridor's end, he found himself at the base of a circular staircase that spiraled upward into the heart of the tower. The steps were carved from the same dark stone as the rest of the structure, worn slightly in their centers from what must have been countless feet over countless years. There was no technology here, no lift, no gravity negation field, just a primitive spiral of stone steps stretching upward further than Gritzo could see. It seemed oddly appropriate. Whatever waited at the top, it would not be reached without effort. Gritzo began to climb. The orbs continued to guide him, appearing a few steps ahead and vanishing as he reached them, only to reappear further up. Step after step, turn after turn, the staircase seemed endless. His legs began to ache, then burn. His breathing grew labored. Still, he climbed. He lost track of time in that stone spiral. It might have been minutes or hours. Occasionally, he passed landings with archways leading to other parts of the tower, but the orbs always directed him upward, ever upward. When he finally reached the summit, Gritzo was drenched in perspiration, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The final orb led him through a simple arched doorway into a circular chamber near the top of the tower. The room was large but austere. A ring of tall, narrow windows provided a panoramic view of the city below and the strangely colored sky beyond. In the center of the chamber stood a shallow stone basin filled with water so still and clear it appeared to be solid crystal rather than liquid. Other than this, the room was devoid of furniture or decoration. As his eyes adjusted to the different light, Gritzo noticed a figure standing by one of the windows, back turned to him, silhouetted against the alien sky. The figure was tall and thin, draped in simple robes of a deep purple that seemed to absorb all light. Gritzo's attention was drawn to a circular area on the floor near the basin. Unlike the rest of the immaculate stone surface, this section was visibly worn, the material actually depressed by what could only be the result of someone sitting in exactly the same spot for an unimaginable amount of time. Centuries, at least, of the same body occupying the same few square feet of stone. The thought sent a shiver down Gritzo's spine. The silence stretched between them, heavy with anticipation. Finally, Gritzo could bear it no longer. "High Elder," he began, his voice sounding strange in the perfect acoustics of the chamber. "I am Gritzo, lead scientist of the Agrarian Consortium. I come seeking wisdom regarding a discovery of potentially great significance. The analysis of human genetic material has revealed a—" "If it's reward you seek," the figure interrupted without turning, its voice simultaneously ancient and youthful, quiet yet filling the chamber, "you may depart now. Only those who desire truth alone may remain." The words lingered in the air like physical things. Gritzo felt an icy knot form in his stomach. This was not proceeding as he had imagined. He had prepared for many possibilities, scientific debate, diplomatic negotiations, even some form of mind-probing, but not this simple, devastating choice. Slowly the figure turned to face him. Gritzo struggled to maintain his composure as he beheld the High Elder Lohar for the first time. The primal appeared simultaneously ancient and ageless. His face was deeply lined, the skin like parchment stretched over fine bones. But most striking were the eyes, or rather, where eyes should have been. Instead, there were two hollow sockets that somehow weren't empty. Within those cavities swelled what looked like pinpoints of light spinning in endless darkness, as though the elder carried the universe itself within his skull. His ears were long and elegant, but drooped downward like dying leaves, their tips nearly touching his shoulders. His lips were thin, set in a neutral expression that could have indicated either wisdom or indifference. He wore no jewelry, no insignia of office, nothing to indicate his station beyond the unmistakable aura of power that surrounded him. "Choose," the elder said simply. Gritzo knew, with a certainty that transcended logic, that his answer would shape the remainder of his existence. He considered his options rapidly. He could claim to seek only truth while harboring ulterior motives. He could emphasize the scientific importance of his discovery. He could appeal to the elder's sense of responsibility towards the galaxy at large. But as these thoughts raced through his mind, Gritzo realized something profound. The being before him would see through any deception, any half-truth. There was only one viable path forward, and that was absolute honesty. "I want the truth," Gritzo said, surprised by the conviction in his own voice. "Whatever it may be, however it may change my understanding, I need to know." A ghost of a smile flickered across the elder's face. "Yes," he said. "You do." The elder moved towards the central basin with a grace that belied his apparent age. He gestured for Gritzo to approach. "It was inevitable that a curious individual would notice eventually," the elder said, his voice like dry leaves rustling. "The humans could not remain hidden from the greater galaxy forever." The implications of this statement hit Gritzo like a physical blow. "Hidden? Are you saying, are humans a primal creation?" The elder tilted his head slightly. "In one way, they are. In another, they are not." Frustration glared in Gritzo's chest. "That isn't an answer," he said, momentarily forgetting who he was addressing. "It doesn't even resemble the truth you promised." "On the contrary," the elder replied, unperturbed by Gritzo's tone. "It is precisely the truth." He moved his hand over the basin, and the water's surface rippled despite not being touched. Images began to form in the liquids, not reflections, but scenes from some distant past. "Long ago, even by my reckoning, one of our kind crash-landed on the planet the humans call Earth. He was grievously injured, his vessel destroyed in a confrontation with an enemy long since disappeared from this galaxy. By all reasonable assessment, he should have perished there, alone on a primitive world." The water showed the image of a primal, wounded and weak, surrounded by what Gritzo recognized as early humans, more primitive than the current version, but unmistakably the same species. "But he did not die, at least not immediately," the elder continued. "A group of humans found him, despite their primitive nature, despite his alien appearance that must have terrified them. They helped him. They brought him food. They attempted to heal his wounds with their rudimentary medicines. They sheltered him from the elements." Gritzo stared at the images in rapt attention, scarcely breathing. "Our kind can sense intent, as you know. This wounded primal sensed no malice in these creatures, only curiosity and desire to aid a being in distress. He knew he would not survive to leave their world, so he gave them a gift, a fraction of what makes us primal, encoded in their genetic structure." "A gift?" Gritzo whispered, shock coursing through him. "How could your species allow such a thing? How could those primitives possibly be trusted with primal genetic material?" The elder smiled, his all-seeing eye swirling with ancient light. "What is freely given must not be taken back. I do not expect you to understand this, scientist Gritzo. Your people have a different philosophy." Gritzo's mind raced, piecing together implications that grew more staggering by the moment. "But the future? Aren't you concerned? If humans possess latent primal abilities, couldn't they one day become powerful enough to threaten even your kind?" The elder laughed, a sound like distant crystal chimes. "Just that. he said, his amusement evident. When he recovered his composure, the elder gestured towards the windows and the empty city beyond. "Tell me, scientist, do you see a thriving civilization out there? Can you comprehend what happens to a species when children are born already possessing the wisdom of the ancient? Can you understand how little concern a civilization nearing its sunset feels for future threats?" Gritzo opened his mouth to respond, to say that this meant humans might— "They have not yet reached their dawn," the elder interrupted, seeming to pluck the thought from Gritzo's mind before it was fully formed. "They have not been pressured enough yet, but eventually they will be." The elder circled Gritzo slowly, his robes barely whispering against the stone floor. "Perhaps it will be your species that crosses the line," he said, stopping directly before Gritzo. "Perhaps it will be the Acrarians who cause the first human to awaken." He laughed again, this time with an edge that sent chills down Gritzo's spine. "The galaxy will certainly remember that day." Reality seemed to shift around Gritzo as the full implications settled into his consciousness. Everything he had believed about the natural order of species, about the hierarchy of galactic civilizations, about his own place in the universe, all of it crumbled under the weight of this revelation. His love for science, for cataloguing and categorizing and understanding through analysis, suddenly felt small and inadequate. What value was there in cataloguing weaknesses when the species you studied might one day transcend all such limitations? "What happens to me now?" he asked, his voice barely audible even to himself. The elder returned to the window, gazing out at the fading light of the blue sun. "You may leave and forget," he said, "or you may stay and remember. The choice is yours." "What does that mean?" Gritzo pressed, desperate for clarity. But the elder had turned away, his attention seemingly captured by something in the distant sky that Gritzo could not perceive. Gritzo stared at the open doorway through which he had entered. He could return to his ship, return to his laboratory, return to his life of research and status. He could bury this knowledge, pretend he had never made the discovery, never undertaken this journey. Or he could stay. The decision took shape in his mind with sudden, perfect clarity. In one fluid motion, he lowered himself to the stone floor, prostrating his body before the elder. "Teach me," he said, the words raw with emotion. "I beg you, teach me what you know." The elder turned, regarding him with those cosmic eyes. "You do not possess the gift," he said, his voice neither kind nor cruel, simply factual. "You would forever be able to learn only a fraction of the whole. Is this what you truly want?" Gritzo looked up at the ancient being, and in that moment he had never been more certain of anything in his life. "Yes," he said, without a trace of doubt. "Yes." A gentle hand came to rest on his shoulder, the first physical contact the elder had initiated. The touch was light, but carried with it a sense of immeasurable strength. "Your task, then," the elder said softly, "is to clean the dust from the floor." Gritzo blinked, momentarily confused. Then, as understanding dawned, a smile spread across his face, perhaps the first genuine smile of his adult life, unmarred by ambition or calculation. "Yes, High Elder," he said, rising to his feet, "I will clean the dust." And in that simple acceptance, Gritzo, who had sought weakness in the blood of humans, found something far more valuable, a brand new beginning.